everyone, and welcome to Podcast with CISH, our very own podcast which sheds light on the world's most exciting and pressing issues. My name is Darina Saliba Abijdid. I'm the director of the UNESCO International Center for Human Sciences, Byblos, in Lebanon. And I will be launching the show, which will be hosted by our young, talented interns. In our first series, we will be exploring the interesting yet complex interplay between the rapidly growing technological advancements of AI and the ethical implications and concerns which come along with it. We will discuss the ins and outs of artificial intelligence, the human rights scope which arises from it, delving deeper into the potential exits out of the clashes between innovation and human moral codes. This podcast is directly aligned with the recommendations on ethics of artificial intelligence produced in 2021 by UNESCO, the only official framework about ethics and AI adopted by 193 member states. And with the CISH 2022-2025 strategy, which highlights the necessity to raise awareness on the ethics of AI as a strategic priority. So whether you're new to AI, a core tech geek, or simply someone willing to start bridging the gap between ethical considerations and AI advancements, make sure to tune in and join us to our informed conversation on this topic today.
Hi everyone, my name is Rita Makhlouf. I'm a communications intern at CISH, and today I will be hosting my colleague, Agustin Isidro, whose main task was to work on his project during his internship. Hi Agustin, how are you?
Hi Rita, I'm doing great, and it's a pleasure to be here in the CISH podcast. And well, firstly, I have to admit that I didn't know anything about this document, so that's why we are doing this project, because we want to reach as much people as possible, especially the youth audiences, because they are going to build our future regarding artificial intelligence.
Great, so let's start the conversation today by talking about the ethical scope of AI and how this relates to our work at CISH and at UNESCO in general. So there is only one official document which actually mentions the ethical scope of AI legally. So could you please tell us more about this document?
Yes, well, in November 2021, as you may know, UNESCO released a groundbreaking document called the Recommendation on the Ethics of Artificial Intelligence, which stated the 10 core principles about how to get a more centered approach human rights for the ethics of artificial intelligence. So we need policymakers, developers, and even the youth to get to know this special document.
Great. So let's start our conversation today by discussing the ethical scope of AI, especially knowing that there is only one official document which sets the framework for the ethical scope of AI in the world. It's very important for us and for our audience to get to know what the core elements of this document are. Could you please tell us more about that?
Well, in November 2021, UNESCO released a groundbreaking document called the Recommendation on the Ethics of Artificial Intelligence, which stated 10 main points about how to have a more centered approach of human rights into the ethics of artificial intelligence, something that is really useful for developers and policymakers. And in fact, during the last few months, during the last few years, we have seen how ChatGPT, for example, has made completely different things on the international sphere, in the education sphere and academia sphere, that could lead to a potential loss of jobs. So there's some concern, but we need also to face those challenges.
Great. So let's delve deeper into each and one of these standards that the document sets out. So first off, we have the do not harm and proportionality principle. So the core of the standard lies in the fact that AI should not go beyond what is necessary in order for it to actually reach a legitimate objective. So this leads us also to another principle in order for that other one to be achieved, and that is human oversight and determination. Because it's very important for humans to be able to oversee what AI is doing in order for it to be kept in the right ethical track.
Yes, and we shouldn't also forget about safety and security, as we need to measure all the risks and avoid them as much as possible. And we need also to address any vulnerability possible just because artificial intelligence can be hacked, something that is also related to the point of right to privacy and data protection. And talking about privacy and data protection, all this relies under the collective responsibility of multi-stakeholder and adaptive governance and collaboration, which means basically we need to respect national laws, international laws, and we need also to include different points of views just to avoid any biases, which means also it has to be fair with no discrimination.
Exactly. Speaking about the accessibility of AI programming, another principle which UNESCO frames is transparency and explainability. So it should specify how all AI programs work in order for us to have an open source, which leads us to another principle that is responsibility and accountability in order for us to be able to hold accountable anyone that leads AI to go in an unethical track.
And this brings us to another important point, that it's in fact our main objective in this podcast, and it's awareness and literacy. We need the people to understand, obviously, how artificial intelligence works, and we need also to make them understand all its effects and outcomes in this society.
This is very important, as it brings me to my next point that is also highlighted in the 10 UNESCO principles, and that is that AI should serve sustainably. And as you know, here our work at CISH, we aim to be sustainable on all levels, not only the environment, but also AI is one of the scopes that we work on. The UNESCO principles set out that AI should serve the common good, and that is serving the common good, hence serving sustainably. Thank you, Augustine. I think this brings us to the end of our first episode. In our next series of videos, we are going to be discussing other topics which fall under the realm of AI and ethics.